Welcome to the latest episode of Branding the Experience, where we discuss ways how we can create environments where employees actually want to come to work and customers want to keep coming back. I am Ken Bader, your host for Branding the Experience. Our subject today, podcasting is an intimate experience. Now, why am I talking about this on Brand the Experience? Well, couple of reasons. One is a lot of businesses are learning that podcasting can be a really wise branding and marketing tactic. In especially in that we can't have a lot of events necessarily anymore. Hopefully, that's coming back in 2022 with hopefully COVID will go away. Can we get rid of this pandemic already? And they need ways to connect with people. People aren't even going into places as much. Restaurants are doing more delivery. Banks have ITMs and online, and there are fewer people actually going into the place. I think I see those Capital One commercials where they have a little coffee shop, and I think, okay, well, that seems like a nice experience, but are people just going in for coffee and then doing a transaction on their phone? I don't know. Uh, but many businesses have found that podcasting can be a way to connect with people. And the reason being is that it is intimate, it's right in your ears. And that brings me to the second reason why I want to talk a little bit about podcasting and branding the experience is many of you know I do write for Podcast Magazine. I cover true crime and now comedy as well, even though I've had a few people just in the last couple of weeks tell me that I'm not funny. Uh, I'd like to think I'm funny when I want to be. But anyhow, be that as it may, I did a panel recently, which will turn into a series in 2022 on podcasting and going in a little bit deeper. But I spoke to about 5 or 6 podcasters on this panel, and we asked about why do you podcast, or specifically, why do you do this particular medium? And they all said in some way, shape, or form that it is about the intimacy. And just to go a little bit deeper into that, we're all looking for ways to not just market to our customers, to not just brand our business, but to engage people, to make a human connection. And certainly, writing a blog or doing video as I'm doing here can do that. But when it comes to either one of those mediums, you have to have a conscious focus on reading or watching that as a consumer. When it's a video, you have to sit and watch. Even mine, granted, yeah, you don't want to see my face, you don't want to see my mannerism. You could probably just listen to it instead of seeing me bounce around here. The video component is my way for branding the experience, to try and connect through my facial expressions and so forth, and not just audio. And the written word is even more focused. If you're going to read an article, you literally, need to sit down and read it. It's hard to do anything else. I guess you could be walking on a treadmill and read something, or a stationary bike, but I would hope that you're not on a regular bike out there in the streets reading an article or a blog on your phone and trying to bike, some major streets at the same time. Please, public service announcement, don't do that. But with a podcast, you're intimately right in somebody's ears. They're listening to you. And they may be doing other things, using different parts of their brain function, where they're working out, they're doing some work, they're walking, they're driving, but their brain still allows for that connection with the podcast and listening to the voice, listening to the story. Yeah, in fact, and I'll begin to wrap up with this. The most recent interview I did was with a filmmaker that took her first stab at podcasting and loved it. And she mentioned how she was always a visual person in telling a story. And she fell in love, although she was reluctant to do a podcast. The story that was in front of her, in essence, forced her to go into a podcast. But she talked about how much she loved it because there was an intimacy in that. And even the interview she did, she made sure that she did it over the phone. They actually got together for one interview to tell the story. It says, this isn't working, us in the same room. There's a certain intimacy, the word she used specifically, in being on the phone and being in each other's ears. And I think that's the same with podcasting. So what does that mean for branding the experience? I think that even if everything opened up and the good Lord came down and said COVID is no longer a part of our world and everybody moved about freely, podcasting would still have an importance. Podcasting is continually going up. And I think the reason is that there's an intimacy to that particular medium. So as a business, if you could do the right podcast, maybe if you're a wellness company, you could have a wellness podcast. If you're a bank or a credit union, especially if you're an institution that serves a specific niche or a specific region, you could have a podcast specifically that's catered to that. I think of one of my clients, Desert Valleys, that does a podcast called DV Live, where they talk not about the credit union, but they talk about the region, and they get guests in from different places, different businesses that they work with, and it's going really well from what I understand. So think about how can we engage our folks in a way that is important to them. Not to sell product necessarily. Certainly, you could put a few commercials in there. Not always to just show off our expertise, but to align a podcast that is well branded with our business, with our core values and who we are, and also offer something that's entertaining, engaging, and educating to our consumer base. That can be really powerful, and that can brand the experience for your unique business. Thanks for spending some time with me today. And as always, here's hoping that you're branding the experience at a very high level for all those you serve. Now a word from our sponsor, Bader Training and Consulting. BTC has recently partnered with the Success Corps to offer the Podcast for Business Success package. Launching a podcast allows your business to engage directly with your established audience, strengthening an existing bond while simultaneously developing future relationships with prospects who they may have never done business with or met otherwise. Ken Bader and Sean Douglas utilize branding, culture, and strategy to increase engagement between company and customer by launching your uniquely branded, strategically designed podcast, fostering customer relations and business growth. Ken and Sean have hosted over 1,000 podcast episodes across multiple shows and channels. You can watch live, in person, or virtually as they speak at most podcast events around the country, highlighting their expertise as icons of influence in the podcasting space. Ken and Sean not only teach the art of podcasting, but are well-known and respected practitioners, launching dozens of top-rated shows between them and their clients. Ken is also a frequent contributor to Podcast Magazine. Rather than launching your podcast on your own, wouldn't it make sense to have not one but two icons of influence teach you how? Of course it would. So harness the power of your past to launch your future with a perfectly branded podcast. Contact BTC at info@btcinc.net today with podcast package in the subject line for more information today.